Oh, hello, can we please talk about UFC 279 coming our way this Saturday night? Obviously, it's a rare one, this, because it's headlined without a title fight. We all know who the title fight, the main event, Khamzat Chimaev against Nate Diaz. That's interesting, and it's way more interesting than people think it is. A lot of people think it's going to be a whitewash. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I'm making a case for it later on. I'll save that for my actual breakdown. There are also various really fun fights on this card, and a few of them that jumped out at me. What I do here on this show is I do my research into the fighters, have a look at what they do well, what could play into their opponent's hands, and you know what? I make picks. Like, they're not always good, but I usually go for long shots because I like to keep the odds long, the stakes low, and the bets terrible. But the research is all good. If you effectively just want to learn a little bit more about these fighters on this card, then stick around for the Burt Locker Fights in 15 for UFC 279. Right, we're starting off in the light heavyweight division. You've got Johnny Walker versus Ion Cutelaba. Now, this one is interesting because, honestly, it's probably a loser leaves town match, isn't it? Like, you've got both these guys who had a little... I mean, Cutelaba didn't have that much hype because he hasn't really strung more than one win together since he's been in the UFC. But he's still fun to watch, which is why he has been kept around. You know, he always fights, he always turns up, and you know what? He is quite exciting. I quite like him. He either wins spectacularly or loses devastatingly, or sometimes loses or draws. Either way. Then you got Johnny Walker, who started off on that 4-fight win streak, and he did that knee. I think it was on Kirkinov, if I'm not mistaken. Like, he did like this knee that knocked him out like cold. And basically, Johnny Walker's this big dude. He's 6'6". At one point, people were talking about him fighting John Jones, and he's had a couple of issues since then. His last loss, whilst it was against somebody who I rate very highly, it was a devastating one. So, in a nutshell, look at the tail of the tape a little bit. But the big things that stand off this page here is obviously, you know, Walker's got a 7-inch reach advantage. That's pretty crazy, honestly. That's a huge reach advantage. And you know what? He can use it well, but sometimes, like, the problem with Walker is that he tends to do the flashy stuff really well, but the simple stuff he doesn't execute brilliantly. At least that's what I've seen in his past fights, right? And that's no disrespect to him. It's just what I've seen. Ion Cutelaba, he's also another one who's very powerful, especially in the first round, in round one. The problem with Walker here is that, look, Walker ran into Jamal Hill last time out. Jamal Hill is someone that I rate very, very highly. I do think he's going to be a champion. He hits differently. And you saw him when he hit Walker, that he sent him to the shadow realm. It was a ridiculous knockout. That was the last experience in the Octagon for Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker has moved around a few camps. He now trains down in SDG in Ireland with John Kavanagh. If anybody can work out, you know, Walker's fundamentals, it's John Kavanagh. Although, you know, Kavanagh also said that he was that McGregor was beating Poirier before he broke his leg. So I'm not sure how competent he is, actually. I don't know. No, he is. He's a good coach. Look, it is what it is. But Walker, you don't want him to lose all of that flashiness and that confidence and that swagger, like the dancing, like the fun that he has. You don't want him to lose all of that, but you do want him to tighten up his fundamentals just a little bit. Because one of the problems we've got here is that those kind of devastating knockout shots, the one that he took against Hill, it doesn't happen to all fighters, but it can, and it has happened in the past, that that button then is easier to press. And one thing that Ion Cutelaba is going to do, that madman from Moldova, he is going to go in there and he's going to try and push that button. And he hits hard, you know. If he goes in there and he catches Johnny Walker, I don't know how Johnny Walker's chin is going to hold up. I really don't. Now, because the thing is on the face of it, it kind of looks like the UFC are throwing Walker a bone here. Because realistically, Cutelaba, with respect, is somebody that Walker should be beating, right? In 9 UFC fights, Walker has lost 4, drawn 1. So he's only actually won 4 out of those 9 UFC appearances. One of which was that weird one against Devin Clark, who just didn't seem to want to be in there. I'll go back and forth on this one, but my biggest concern is that last KO loss for Walker was really nasty. And one of the things that we're kind of betting on here, really, is how well he's going to come back from that. Because he is the favourite here. And based solely off of their skills and also the attributes that are being brought into the Octagon, I do think that Johnny Walker should win this. He should win this on paper. But I don't know. I mean, they're both of these guys, they do get a lot of knockouts. You got 15 out of 18 wins by knockout for Walker, 12 of 16 for Ion Cutelaba. And the problem is, Walker didn't have the best chin. He got rocked against Ryan Spann before he managed to rally and get the win, to his credit. To his credit, he did. But he didn't have the best of chins beforehand, and he got, like, really sent to a dark place against Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill cracked him real bad. I don't know how good that chin's going to be at this point. Ion Cutelaba, he starts fast. I think there's every chance. Look, Walker, if he's got his mind right and his chin is held up, he should win this fight. My money is going on Ion Cutelaba because he's just aggressive to the point that, you know what, in the first round, Walker's going to have to be very careful because Ion Cutelaba is going to try and test that chin. That's where my money's going. I'm going on Ion Cutelaba to get the knockout. That's my pick. That's my bet. I don't know what the odds are on that yet because the odds are not up, but I'll do maybe another short clip later on in the week once I've actually put the bets down. So the next fight I'm looking at, Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. This is a catchweight fight, 180 pounds. Really interesting. Big fan of both these guys. You all know Kevin Holland, the loudmouth. You know, he's just spectacular. Daniel Rodriguez is someone that not as many people have heard of, but he's very, very good. This one is over on my Patreon. It's an exclusive fight pick for Patreon. If you would like to go and see that fight breakdown, please head over to Patreon. Now, the Burt Locker on Patreon. Thank you very much. Anyway, so let's move on to the co-main event. It's Li Jiangling versus Tony Ferguson. Now, this one is at 170 pounds. That's the key here. 170, not 155. Tony Ferguson has always fought at 155 to this point. Well, not always. He fought at 170, I think, quite a lot earlier in his career. Let's just make sure I'm not making that up. I'm going to just check in real time. Am I making that up? Am I mental? Has he fought at 170 in the past? Let's have a look. Catchweight 158. Pure combat, submission of the night. Return to lightweight. So return... No, he won the welterweight tournament. Yeah, he won the welterweight UFC tournament. That's right. That was the one where Lesnar was coaching against Dos Santos, but Lesnar got another bout of diverticulitis and had to withdraw from the eventual fight with Junior. But I think since then, since winning that, he then went back to lightweight. But yeah, so predominantly his career has been at lightweight, and he's not had the best of luck kind of recently. I mean, but he's fought some killers. He's fought some absolute killers. So the thing is they're putting him against Li Jiangling, and on the face of it, this might look like they're throwing Tony a bone here, because like Li Jiangling, he's somebody that MMA fans know, they're aware of. And he is very good, but it's not like he's this, he's not like this killer like Justin Gaethje. To be fair, a lot of people had Tony beating Justin Gaethje. And I remember at the time saying, "You're mad, Justin Gaethje's going to kill him," and that's exactly what happened. I just feel like that style was kryptonite for Tony Ferguson, and he took a beat down in that fight, and that's a problem because I don't know how you recover properly from that. But fair play to him. Obviously, he probably can. He's Tony Ferguson. He is very good. He's very good, but look, he's always left openings, right? You know, in his last fight, he got sent to this shadow realm against Chandler. But on the flip side, up until that point, I gave Tony the first round against Chandler, and up until he got kicked, that front kick from Chandler, he was actually winning that fight, in my opinion, and he looked as good as he has ever done. So maybe he takes the positives away from that, and he can walk into here with a little bit of confidence. You know, because he got absolutely destroyed by Justin Gaethje, and then who did he get beat? Did he get beaten by Dariush next? No, Oliveira was next. So I forgot they'd even done the Dariush fight. Honestly, that one kind of flew under it, because we all remember the Justin Gaethje, and then Oliveira just out jiu-jitsu'd him. Dariush just decisioned it, and then Michael Chandler just hit that front kick from hell. You know, that's some tough losses. But he's just run into some of the best guys in the division. Is Li Jiangling one of the best guys in the division? Is really the question that needs answering, isn't it? I mean, the thing is, he's got some good wins. He knocked out Santiago Ponzinibbio and Salikov. Right, the knockout of Ponzinibbio was really nice. It was like a looping right. It was a looping right hand. It was really, really well done. And Lee, he's surprisingly difficult to hit, actually. Because we all know about Tony Ferguson's kind of awkward movement, his style. He's almost dancing in there. It didn't really work too well against Gaethje, but it is what it is. He's got an awkward style, always has done. But Li Jiangling has also got a very awkward style. His head is very rarely on the centre line. He's always off the centre line. His hands are always moving as well. It's really weird. He almost shadow boxes on his way in to attacking his opponent. So it's like you don't really know where his strikes are going to be coming from. And he hits hard as well. He keeps a very low stance. His stance is really low, because you've got to bear in mind they've gone up to welterweight now. Li Jiangling is going to be the slightly bigger guy. I think he's ever so slightly taller. I mean, the stats are all there. I haven't got them in front of me, but they're down here. But I'm fairly sure that Lee, it's close, but Lee's going to be the slightly bigger guy. He's got very thick thighs. His legs are very, very powerful. And he kind of keeps quite a low squat position. And a lot of his strikes come from down here, over the top. And it was the right that he caught Ponzinibbio with, which was a really great strike. And my concern here for Tony Ferguson is that, look, a lot of people on the face of it, I mean, actually, to be fair, Ferguson's coming in as quite a heavy underdog here. So I think the bookies understand what's going on, but you're kind of more I don't like to use the word casual, but the fans that are not as aware of Li Jiangling's work might think that Tony Ferguson is being thrown a bone here. Look, it's not a big name he's being thrown to. It's not like some killer. Let's get Tony back on track. The problem here is that Tony Ferguson, his style has always left many openings, right? I mean, we saw that in abundance against Justin Gaethje, but that wasn't the first time we've seen the cracks in Tony's arm. Tony had put together a really impressive win streak, but to be honest, there was a lot of them that he got a little bit kind of... His best performance by far was against Rafael dos Anjos. When he decisioned Rafael dos Anjos, he looked absolutely flawless. Then when he triangled Kevin Lee, that was also peak Tony. However, since that the fight against Pettis, he got knocked down a few times in that fight. He got hit. He got hit a lot. His style leaves him open to getting hit, and his chin just doesn't seem to be. I mean, that kick from Chandler would have knocked out anybody, but has his chin recovered from that? Is the problem, because Li Jiangling, he's quite a heavy hitter. He throws hard, and he's probably going to find that chin. Tony Ferguson's very hittable, and Li Jiangling hits hard. So for me, I'm taking Lee, as much as I would love to see Tony Ferguson just get one back in the win column, just get back on track, to find some sort of momentum. But honestly, if his chin is not able to hold up, Li Jiangling's going to test that chin. He's going to test it early. Unless Tony Ferguson finds a way of getting to the floor, gets a body lock, gets a trip, and then uses his jiu-jitsu to just tap him out, which he could do. For me, that would be the path of least resistance for Tony Ferguson, and I feel like that's probably the best way that he could approach this fight. But Li Jiangling's, he's not a mug. He's going to know that's coming. And those looping shots over the top, I don't feel like Tony's like striking defense is brilliant. I've never thought that, honestly. I think he's got outstanding offense. I've always thought his defense left something to be desired. And the problem here is his chin now doesn't hold up. It hasn't done, like, lately. So, for me, I think the obvious choice here is Li Jiangling to win by knockout. I feel like it'll probably happen relatively early. He's going to land something over the top. And then I don't know what happens to Tony Ferguson after that. That's going to be up to him. Look, I hope Tony Ferguson can find the win. I would love to see Tony Ferguson, just find a way to look really impressive again. He looked impressive until he got knocked out by Chandler, but he then still did get knocked out by Chandler. We have to remember that. It's no good saying, yeah, he looked really good up until that point. It's kind of like with Leon Edwards against Usman. Like, Usman keeps on saying, well, I was winning. People are saying that, like, Usman was winning the fight up to that point. Yeah, but he then got knocked out. So, yeah, he was perfect, but not for long enough. And that's the problem. Tony's got a really... I'm hoping that he's worked on his striking defense, honestly, because I've never thought it was brilliant. And I feel like that could get exposed here. But I hope I'm wrong. I usually am, so this bodes well for Tony Ferguson, doesn't it? And then we've got the main event. The main event where you've got a lot of people saying that, that Nate Diaz is being thrown literally to the wolf, right? But let's just break this down. We know who Khamzat Chimaev is, right? He's this nutter from Chechnya. He's coming in here like on unbeaten, undefeated. He's been looking great, but got Nate Diaz in there. Nate Diaz has he's got so many tough fights, right? There were so many fights where he was put in to lose. Gray Maynard, the Conor McGregor 1 fight, like all those fights. He's so hard to put away. His boxing is so good. And we've only seen Khamzat Chimaev against one top 10 opponent. That is Gilbert Burns, right? Now, Gilbert Burns gave Khamzat everything he could handle and more. It's interesting to note that Burns clipped Khamzat several times with looping shots, right? Looping shots are easy to see, and they're easy to read as well. Nate Diaz doesn't really throw those kind of shots. Nate Diaz, he throws far more down the middle. He does throw hooks, but they come out more like a kind of like, goes out, then in, then slap, then, but he hits like deception and he uses his length really well. It's interesting to note that Burns clipped like Khamzat Chimaev several times, knocked him down. Nate Diaz has 5 inches of reach over Gilbert Burns. I feel like if Gilbert Burns can tag Khamzat Chimaev, then Nate Diaz can probably tag Khamzat Chimaev. Because I would say that, honestly, just like pure boxing, Nate Diaz, he's vastly underrated. And he's so tough to put away. So, they're similar sizes here as well. They're both 6 foot, just about. And Nate Diaz has actually got an inch reach advantage over Khamzat Chimaev. So, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Because the thing is Nate Diaz is going to welcome a takedown. He loves it when people take him down because he just wants to get his submission game going. So there's no fear of the takedown for him. And no fear, that's something else that I just wanted to note, is that, look, Khamzat, he ran through like the competition like early on. We saw at Fight Island fighting people week on, 2 days consecutive, whatever. But with respect to those guys, they weren't ranked, and they were kind of already, they'd already heard the hype and they were scared, like they'd been beaten mentally, right? Nate Diaz is not going into the octagon scared of Khamzat Chimaev. Nate Diaz is the real deal. He is as real as it gets. He's the last of a dying breed, and I think he's actually got a chance here. Because the thing is, like when you see, one of the ways that we've seen Khamzat kind of have problems in the past is against a BJJ guy with really good boxing and excellent cardio, right? If you type in, if you look in the dictionary and look up excellent cardio and very good boxing, there's just a picture of Nate Diaz there. And, throw Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in there as well. He's one of the best in the world. So it's like you take it to the ground, you leave the openings for the submission. You stay standing, especially when it goes out of the first round. Khamzat Chimaev against Gilbert Burns. Khamzat, his demeanour changed completely in the second round. All of a sudden, he didn't get like gassed, but his demeanour changed. He was like, oh shit, you know, this guy's actually not going away like I thought he would. And Khamzat, he might well have to try and put Nate Diaz away in round one. It's like, you know, like when Conor McGregor was saying that, I'm going to knock out Nate Diaz in round one, his response was like, yeah, you better. Because the longer the fight goes, the more in favour it goes of Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz will just try and take over with volume, and he will be able to hit Khamzat Chimaev. Khamzat Chimaev, his head doesn't really move off the centre line, not often. His head is there to be hit. And that's why Gilbert Burns was able to hit him as much as he did, right? Make no mistake, Khamzat Chimaev is an absolute beast. But we've seen him tested against somebody in the top 10, and it didn't go brilliantly for him. Do you know what I mean? He lost it. He lost that round. Well, he lost round 2, and round 3 was close, honestly. So, for me, look, Khamzat Chimaev, he's got electric power, but Nate Diaz, he just has a knack of staying in there. He's going to be very difficult to put away. And if you try your best to put Nate Diaz away in the first couple of rounds, and all of a sudden he's still there, he's bleeding, he's flipping the bird, he's hitting you in the face, and all of a sudden Khamzat Chimaev is just breathing heavy, and he's like, what has happened to this? Why is this guy not going away? Then all of a sudden, like, the tables kind of turned. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, like, it's like, shit, the rumours were true. This guy is a fucking savage. Nate Diaz has only been knocked out one time in his entire career. You look at how many fights has he had? In his entire career, he's been knocked out one time by Josh Thompson. That was that head kick, right? He's got the other TKO loss. Well, it went down as a TKO loss against George Masvidal, but let's be real, that was a cut, wasn't it? It was a cut that opened up. So, look, this one's hard to pick, but like to pick the winner, because obviously, like there's a chance that Khamzat just takes him down and beats on him until the referee, like, you know, has to interject. That's a very real possibility, and the bookies are fancying that option. But I mean, Nate Diaz is like a 7-1 outside favourite just to win. Obviously, I'm rolling the dice on that. Obviously, because look, there are real ways for Nate Diaz to win this fight. Nate Diaz is not going in there to lose to Khamzat Chimaev. He has upset the UFC golden boy before when he fought McGregor, you know, the first time and choked him out. Like, Nate Diaz is more than capable of beating Khamzat Chimaev. It's just going to be a question of whether he does or not. So, that is all I've got time for this week. I'm going to be doing a post with like the actual bets that I make, probably on Friday, whenever the bets come up. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you're betting on. I'm going to enjoy the hell out of these fights. I cannot wait for this, right? Because honestly, you know, enjoy Nate Diaz whilst he's here. He might leave, he might not, who knows? But all we know is he's going to be in there against a really scary proposition in Khamzat Chimaev. I'm not downplaying how scary Khamzat is, but Nate Diaz, he's a fucking tough guy. Do you know what I mean? He is as real as it gets, and he will not be intimidated by Khamzat Chimaev. And I think that's a lot of what kind of really boosts Khamzat in the Octagon. It's going to be a war. It's going to be hard. I think Nate Diaz is going to make this a horrible fight. And we're going to see over 5 rounds what Khamzat Chimaev is made of. He might be as good as we think he is. And he is, like, undoubtedly. But Nate Diaz just has a habit of throwing it. You know, he's a fucking fly in the ointment. You know, he's the pain in the ass. He's got a habit of causing problems. And it's an interesting fight, and I'm just looking forward to seeing it. So, I'll be doing a recap of it next week, and until then, keep all those odds long and those bets terrible.